Welcome back, everybody. We have the lovely Velouria with us today, who's going to share her birth story, and little Luke, who's in her arms. Hello, Lukey.
Hello.
Oh, that's a lovely smile. I'll just get straight into it, Valeria. Just tell us first about how you were feeling in your pregnancy and what you did in terms of your preparation.
So in my pregnancy, I did have I had hyperemesis, so I was quite sick from
Yeah, that's
pretty much
nasty.
the second I got that positive test. And it was a bit of a rough start. Things got a little bit better by 20 weeks, but I still was quite sick in the mornings from then on. And then for prep, I did the Transform Parenting course
Yeah.
with my husband, and yeah, we did all of our video, our like recordings and everything like that, and that was pretty much most of the prep that I did.
Yeah, yeah. So how were you feeling coming into prior to doing the course about giving birth? Like what were your
Yeah.
perceptions around it?
So for me, I think I always had really good positive birth stories from my mum growing up because she's a midwife and I'm the eldest of five, and so she had four vaginal deliveries and one C-section, and so she was always so positive about birth and pregnancy. But then and then I started working in the nursery, so I worked between the special care nursery and the NICU. And that sort of brought a whole different level of fear to because I know we only see maybe 1% of the births in Canberra and our surrounds. But when that's all you see, it sort of feels like that's the only births that there are. That there's
Yeah.
only these horror stories and there's only the complications. So for me, I sort of was quite anxious. And as I got further and further along, and when I started looking after babies that were the same gestation as me, and
Mm.
seeing the complications, I did really start to struggle mentally with that, and I just I had to do something about that kind of anxiety that I had. So I decided that to do the Transform Parenting course, and it really opened my eyes to the fact that I see such a small percentage and that not everything is negative, and that that my mindset really has such a powerful impact on what my story is going to be.
Mm. Mm. Absolutely. I do get a lot of health professionals in my classes, and one of the biggest challenges that they have is they see everything.
Yes.
And the subconscious mind is wired to pick up on fears. So if you're continuously seeing little ones who've had, who've come prematurely or have had some health issue, it can be really, it's a very difficult thing to rationalize your way out of that, because that's real life, that's real experience, and your subconscious knows that.
Yeah.
So can I just get you to reflect a minute on when you came to do the class? I mean, you were fortunate that you had a mother talking about birth in a very positive way.
Yes.
When you came to do the class, what were some of your big turning points where you started to embrace the idea that, okay, it doesn't have to be complicated because of my experience in hospitals?
I think it was listening to the stories of the other women, like the videos that you played during the classes. Especially there's the one of the woman that had, the two more complicated pregnancies, birth, sorry. And then when after she'd done what I think it was a calm birth one,
Mm.
that she sort of really came to and sort of felt a lot more positive and had that really positive birth. And I
Yeah.
think for me, that was the moment where I realized that, that everyone's got their own sort of path and their own journey. And mine doesn't have to be a negative one. It could be. There's always things that can
Yeah.
go wrong. And I was still well aware of that. But it was, just the thought of that it doesn't have to be that, just because that's what I see all the time.
Yeah. So it opened up your mind. Storytelling's powerful, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it was the stories.
Yeah. Storytelling is how we've always learnt about birth. And that's why I really love doing these podcasts, because I think it's important we open our mind to possibilities. And what you said there was beautiful. It is an individual path. Every time you have a baby, it's a very unique and different experience. I've had 4 babies, and every one of them took me on a completely different ride. So
Yes.
I think it's important for us to appreciate that whilst we can hear other people's stories, they're not really that useful to us, because we've got to walk our own path. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Well, how about we launch into the birth? Tell us about your birth.
So I went into labor at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I kind of woke up from this really bizarre dream, and where
You remember the dream, Velouria?
yeah, so we were watching WandaVision. Do you know that?
No.
Yeah. It's like a Marvel series.
Right.
We were watching that, and there's, your classic Marvel fight scenes in it. And in the dream, I was Wanda, so the main character, and I was having this big battle, and of course it was hurting. And so when I finally woke up, I went, oh my goodness, I think I'm having contractions. And
wow, go Wanda.
Yeah, and so I checked my Facebook, and I saw that my mum had been active, and I sent her a message and I said, "Are you awake?" And she was like, "Yeah, I just woke up to get a glass of water." And I said, "Oh, I think I'm in labor." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And so she said to me, she said, "Oh, take 2 Panadols and have some toast and a cup of tea, and do that and try to go back to sleep."
Yeah, very wise.
And I did that, and I spewed everywhere.
Oh,
I was
no.
quite sick actually from it. And so so then I ended up trying to go back to sleep, and I just couldn't. It was just because they were really irregular at the start. And so,
Right.
I'd get 7 minutes of sleep, and then maybe 5, and it got to about 4 a.m. and after about 2 hours or so, and I woke up Jed, and I said, that's my husband, sorry. And I said, I'm in labor. You might need to just text your boss and let him know you're not coming into work. And I sort of said, I might need a little bit of support because things are getting a little bit uncomfortable. And so, he got up and made himself some breakfast, and I tried to eat. I had a little bit of toast then because I was quite set on trying to eat something.
Yeah.
And then I just I just set my little birthing area up in the lounge room. I had like some thin foam mattresses, my birthing ball, and had all the towels in the world pulled out, and had my birth playlist on the TV playing. And I just sort of labored at home, and then at about 10 o'clock, I called mum to come in. And so then she came in, and that slowed things down a little bit, because I think it was, as much as I trust my mum, it was someone coming into my little safe environment. So that slowed things down a little bit.
And
but
just before you go any further, can I just ask you more about what you did at home to find comfort? How did you manage those contractions?
So I just pretty much just had the lights off, and we had a very strict no time policy. So I didn't want to know the time. The only time I think I found out the time was when I was calling mum, and she was saying, "Oh, the traffic's a bit," because she's out in Yass.
Right.
And so that was about the only time, was when she was like, "Oh, the traffic, give me I might be a little bit late." That was pretty much the only time that I knew. But I had my music, and I diluted some clary sage and some almond oil, and so we were rubbing my belly with that, and we had it in my little aromatherapy as well. So we did some essential oils. We had no lights, and I just had my music playing. And then I just sort of used my birth ball, and I sort of, in the end, it was a lot of trial and error to try and find a comfortable position for me to get contractions.
Yeah. So how would you describe the sensations during that time?
I think it was just like really strong, like just waves. Like it was really sort of, it's so difficult to sort of explain. I had people that were like, oh, it feels like a period, but it didn't feel like that for me. And so I think I obviously we're all very different with that, but
Yeah.
it just felt like it was just really strong, like waves, and I could just feel like everything sort of getting a bit tight. And
Yeah.
then afterwards, it was just like when it ended, like it was just like I could just keep going. Like it was
Yeah.
kind of funny. Like, I'd be like, oh, just a contraction, and I'd stop talking and I'd breathe through. And then afterwards, I'd be like, yeah, yeah. So, what do you have like lunch packed? Is everything ready to go? Like it was kind of, and
Yeah, right.
I'd be like, oh, we forgot to buy the strainer for the birth pool at the hospital. So then, like I sent Jed off to go and get that from Coles. And so yeah, it was kind of funny how like I would have these moments of just like just it's very, for me it was very uncomfortable. And
Mm.
I wouldn't like, some of them would be painful if I wasn't in the position that I found comfortable.
Mm.
But if I was in the right spot, and if I had had enough time to sort of prep myself for it, then yeah, sort of
Yeah. What
yeah.
was the tool that you used that was the most useful in that phase?
I think it was just the positioning, and then holding Jed's hands so tightly that they would
Mm.
be they'd start to go a bit white. But it was just him. I think he was just my
Ah,
biggest
interesting.
support through that. So,
Yeah.
that whether he was giving me the pressure on my pelvis, or if he was just sort of, holding my hand and getting me
Mm.
water, like he was just, I think he was the biggest thing that got me through it.
The
Yeah.
biggest tool in the toolkit.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to the hospital.
Yeah. So, we called. So I was with the continuity program. So my
Okay.
midwife came out, and she checked me at home. Um, and I was about a 6. So she said, come on, you got to go in. You're making some sounds that are a little bit like maybe things are going to go a bit fast. So,
Yeah.
so she brought me, so she said, come on in. And we live in Amaroo, and I was birthing at the Canberra hospital. So that's about a
Overdrive.
30-minute drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I put my little touch dry down on my seats because I didn't want, I was worried my waters hadn't gone yet.
Mm.
So I was quite worried that that would happen in the car. That was my biggest concern was my
Messing up the car.
yes. So I got in the car, and at the start I was very overwhelmed by the feeling of the contractions sitting on like my bum in the seat, because I hadn't done my contractions like that. I'd done my contractions on all fours pretty much the whole time, sort of swaying through them, or like, and just being able to use my like voice to sort of verbalize getting through them.
Mm.
And then I was sort of put in this car in this uncomfortable seat on my
Yeah.
bum, and I was just like, oh my goodness, and so, and then I just remember Jed was just like, just go to your, because I if people have done the course, you find your happy space.
Mhm.
And mine was always under the ocean, because I always wanted to go through the waves of my contractions.
Yeah.
And so he was like, you just have to just focus. And so we turned the radio off in the car, and we just drove in silence. And this is going to sound really weird, but I didn't feel a contraction like the whole drive, because I just
Wow.
sat there with my eyes closed, with my head on my pillow, and just like this on the window. And
Yeah.
I just was in my little Atlantis, just under the ocean with my mermaids, just like completely, like I could feel the contractions in the sense that they were just like, I was just feeling like the waves through the ocean,
Yeah.
like the tide kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much all I felt. And then I sort of, mum was like, oh, do you want a wheelchair? And I decided that would just be it would be like sitting on
Mm.
my bum again. So that was horrible. So I just thought, no, I'll walk. So
Mm.
we got dropped off in the little maternity section. Then Jed went off and parked, and mum walked me up to the birth center. And yeah, and then from there I just got straight into the water, because I think at that point things were getting like things were getting really intense by the time I finally got into the hospital. And that was the first thing I thought of, was I just thought, I just need the water. I don't know, I couldn't think of anything else in that moment that would be able to sort of help me out and get through the pain of everything that well, not pain, like the discomfort of labor at that point, because things were getting, yes.
Yeah. So when you got in, and was the water ready for you?
The water was ready, yeah. So
Wow.
thankfully my amazing midwife beat us in there by because she told us just to wait for about 10 minutes. So she beat us in, and she had the bath all filled up, and we and she had the essential oils going for us, and then we got the iPad up, and at this time I just was listening to Adele. Yeah, so I had my Adele going, and it was just playing on the iPad, and I first thing I did was I got straight into the water, and
What was that like?
It was at the start, I think it was it took me a bit to find my position that I felt comfortable. So the first couple of contractions in there were quite overwhelming. And I also think that I was probably hitting transition at about that stage as well, because it was in that moment that I sort of turned to my mum and my husband, and I said, I can't do this.
Yeah. There are those magic words.
Yeah, there's those magical words. And it was, and it was that moment when my mum was just like, no, it's okay. Just find a comfortable spot. So I ended up going on my knees, and I sort of had my arms out in front and resting my head on the side of the bathtub like that. And I just sort of rested like that for the next maybe 3 hours or so. And things just started getting really quick. There was, there wasn't much of a break. I didn't get another check from the one that at home. I decided that I didn't want many checks. I would have been happy to have none. But when I got checked at home, I just wanted to see if I needed to come in yet, because we just weren't too sure. But then once I was in the hospital, I just wanted them to go off of my contractions rather than because for me, that number is, it's like a 6 didn't mean I was halfway, because I'd been laboring since 2 a.m. and that was about 3 p.m. when I was a 6, and then I had him at 7:30. So that 6 didn't mean I was halfway. That 6 only meant that I had 3 hours to go, kind of thing. So
that's a really important point. I just want to pick up on for people listening. What Velouria is talking about there is checks are what's called vaginal examinations, which is where your doctor or your midwife, they can both do them with a gloved hand. They get you out of whatever position you're in, and they give you and you sit on the bed or somewhere where they can put their hand inside your vagina to see how open the door is, how dilated the cervix is. And one of the problems with getting vaginal examinations is that they do disturb labour, because they're taking a woman out of a very comfortable, potentially comfortable position, and putting her in a very exposed position, opening your legs like that. That's the sort of thing that, really can change a labour, particularly if, she doesn't necessarily have a relationship with the person who's doing it. And of course, her history and how she feels about that procedure is also going to influence how that labour responds. But then the other challenge is the way it influences the mind in labour. Now, the mind, one of the biggest challenges women have in labour is they don't know how long they're going to labour for. And so the mind is a really important component to harness it in a positive way, to direct it towards being in the moment, right here, right now, this contraction, and going to your happy place like you did, or focusing on words and images that really support your mind to feel happy about what is going on and the intensity of the experience. However, when we do vaginal examinations or checks and we find out that we're a particular number, that can influence the mind in quite a negative way. Or it can also be encouraging, actually. It can be the opposite as well. I shouldn't paint just always a negative picture. It can either encourage or discourage. But the challenge it presents is whatever number you get, has absolutely no bearing on how long it's going to take you to finish the job. And that's what women, when they want to know the number, they're really wanting to know, how much longer do I have to keep doing this? And if they can keep out of that space of thinking, how much longer do I have to keep doing this, and stay in the moment right here, right now, then their mind is less likely to sabotage the process of being in the moment and working with the labour. We have these beautiful hormones called endorphins, and inside of endorphins give you a sense of timelessness, which is actually to work to your favour. So women typically don't think about time unless it's planted in their mind by the people around them. So it's one of those things I tell my couples is, don't talk time, okay? Because it messes with women's heads and it gets them into that thinking of, how much longer do I have to keep going thinking? So thank you for raising that, because I think it's a really important point people need to understand when it comes to managing the uncertainty of you don't know where the finish line is. Yeah.
No, that was the
So,
big.
yeah, so you only chose to have one vaginal examination, and that's an important thing. People need to know they can say no to those procedures. They are not a medical necessity, okay?
Yes.
A vaginal examination is not a medical necessity. However, there can be times when it's really appropriate. So asking your caregivers prior to Labour Day, under what circumstances would you want me to do a vaginal examination, then prior to Labour Day, then on the day, if they do want to do it for a pretty good reason, then you can say yes, or if it's not a good enough reason, you can say no.
Yeah. So for
and
me,
that worked for you.
yes, for me, I just wanted one just to know whether whether I needed to come in yet, because I wanted to do 90% of my labor at home. And that was just purely because, once you're in that hospital, you're on the obstetrician's clocks, whether you're birth center or birth suite, you're still on their radar the second you walk through that door.
Yeah,
so
for sure. They're going to keep an eye on you.
Yeah, I wanted 90% of it at home. And then, so for me, so that's why I got my one check. And then I was very quite honest from after that I was just like, I just want, and I found it so incredibly uncomfortable. It was, it is very, like you said, invasive. And, like I was saying before, I labored on my all fours for most of the time. And so then being on my back, that the contraction that happened when she was checking me was just one of those moments where I was like, oh my goodness, I can't do this,
Yeah.
So that's why, another reason why. And I didn't want to get out of the water either. I was very comfortable in the bath.
So tell us about your pushing phase.
Yes. So I think I pushed for maybe about 2 hours, and that was just in the bath. And I think that he was sort of struggling to come down for a bit there. And so I had to get onto my feet. Right, I was on my knees in the bath, and so then I had to sort of come back up onto my feet like a frog, I guess. And so, Papa. And so I had to sort of squat in the bath, and that sort of, it was those really they no longer were painful at all, the contractions. They were just intense and strong and very quick. So it was, I wasn't getting much of a break in between. So it would go for like a minute or so, and then I would only get about a minute break, and then it would happen again. And that just sort of kept getting shorter and shorter. And I really sort of got to a point where I needed to just use my voice, I think, to help me sort of to get him through. So it was lots of that primal sort of sounds, and that's so instead of, and it was just focusing on where to push as well, because I think that when the first time that that you're doing it, you just, it's hard to know when and like what to do. So I just sort of let my body sort of tell me where to push. And and I think for me it was really just focusing on like sort of bearing down, I guess, and then just sort of letting that sort of happen. And I didn't want to use up too much energy because I knew, being a primate, that it would be quite, like, the pushing stage is quite long. So and I knew that I couldn't use up all my energy. So I think I just
very
sort of
wise.
let my body just sort of take over. And I didn't focus too much on it, and it was good because my midwife just let me sort of do what I needed to do. There was no oh, you need to push now, it's been an hour and a half, you need to try harder, you need to get this done, sort of thing. And then, so because my waters didn't break until just before he came out, so I had bulging membranes for quite a while. And then, unfortunately, when they did finally bust, he came out quite fast.
Right.
So he was sort of just sitting there, and then they finally went, and then he just came right out pretty much in the next 2 pushes, which did not do many favors to my peri.
You had a bit of an injury there.
So after that, I ended up with what's called a 3B tear.
So just tell me, before you go into that, did you feel it?
No, not at all. I would have had no idea. It was I had the classic sort of burning, that's how I knew that things were sort of happening. I remember turning to my mum and I said, my bottom's on fire, because that's what it feels like. It feels like, it just feels like someone's there with a cow prod, it's very hot. But I wouldn't have had any idea that I had that I had torn. I was actually quite surprised. When my midwife, so when she did the check, and when it was quite painful for me, I think that was the moment that I was like, oh, I don't think it's meant to be so painful while they have a look. And then they ended up getting the obstetrician to come in and to have a look, and they do this lovely little trick where they put a finger up your bottom and then a finger in your vagina, and they can feel the muscles, how far you've gone. And from there I had to get consented to go to theatres, and which is a bit sad because then you get separated. I was separated from Luke for quite a few hours. And I went to theatre, and then I think I got back to the room at about 1 a.m. and I'd had him at about 7:30. So it was.
Did you have some time with him before that, though?
I did, yes. So I still got my golden hour with him, and it takes a while for theatres to get ready. So I did get quite a bit of time with him, which was nice, but it was still really hard to leave, and it was really hard for my husband as well. He said he kept his hand on his chest to make sure he was breathing the whole time because he was so nervous.
So when you met little Luke, tell us about that experience, and what did it feel like? Like, what was your bonding experience?
It was just the most surreal feeling. It just, the whole time in labor, for me, I was thinking, I could never do this again. This is so uncomfortable. Like, how did my mother do this 4 times? Like, this is, and then we didn't know the gender. So, we were sort of, he started to come out, and Jed put his hands in the water and grabbed him and pulled him out, and he was just sort of like faced me with his scrotum in my face, and I just remember I went, oh my goodness, it's a boy. And so, he was born on the 4th of May. So I had a deal with my husband. He's a big Star Wars fan, that if he's born on the 4th of May, he can be, and if it's a boy, he can be called Luke.
Luke Skywalker.
And so I sort of looked at him, looked at the time, and went, oh, it's little Luke. And so and it was really lovely. I just sort of held him and I just cried. And I just remember I said the silliest thing. I said, oh, that wasn't even that bad.
There's those hormonal highs.
And everyone just cracked up because I don't even know why it said it. I think it was just the hormones. I just, because all the pain's gone, all the pain that I'd felt for the last maybe 16, 17 hours, just gone. Like it was just like, he just came out and it was just like that. And I was no longer in any pain at all. I just sort of held him and just went, oh, that's not too bad. That was fine. Even though like maybe an hour ago I was saying I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it, so
it takes you for a ride. The whole process of welcoming a baby is a real ride for every woman. And I like to use the metaphor of, when we become a mother, whether it be for the first time or the fourth time, whatever, every time it's an upgrade of the whole system, and it's the cracking of the shell from the woman into the mother, and the mother's a bigger version of the woman. And so she has to go on a journey. She has to do the hero's journey, if you know that work, where she has to discover she's much bigger and more powerful than what she thinks. And that's the beauty of dealing with the pain, or however women experience it, to get to your baby. And then when you have that moment of seeing them for the first time, and it's not always peaches when women see their babies for the first time, but whatever path their bonding takes, it's still a very intense experience. So what did you learn about yourself as a result of the birth, and how do you think that's kind of influenced your mothering?
Oh, I think that the biggest one was that, like, that you can get through so many things just by sort of putting your mind to it, and like breastfeeding is such a challenge. And I think, and I just remember so many times, in the middle of the night thinking, oh, how am I going to keep doing this? And I just remember thinking, like, we can get through it, that people have done this, women have birthed and women have breastfed for so many years, and that, that we can get through it. And like, there is, I think, and the one thing that did also get me through it was the fact that I don't have to do it, that if it's too much, if I just can't, then I don't have to as well. So I think knowing that I had my options there was quite good. And definitely just because labor is just so intense and the hormones are so much that you can become quite almost unreasonable with yourself when things sort of start to calm down a bit, and it's hard to sort of ground yourself afterwards. But I just sort of, I kept doing my the recordings from you as well afterwards, and that really helped because it's easy. I think, if people have done the course, it's easy to wake up for your baby, but it is very hard to go back to sleep. And so there were so many times where I would be laying there, and then I just remember being like, oh no, I've got a recording for this.
And you did the sleep track?
Yeah. And I'd put my sleep track on with my headphones, and I'd put him back in his little bassinet, and I'd do that, and I'd fall asleep. And even if it was just for 45 minutes, if he just woke me up as soon as it was finished, it was okay, because at least I got something. And but I did utilize the recordings quite a lot just to sort of ground myself afterwards.
The recordings we give our families are an absolute crucial part to the transformation process, because they're brainwashing you into believing in yourself, for starters. They're helping you to access deeper and deeper states of relaxation. And they're also helping to, reorganize your subconscious, moving you towards a belief in yourself and your ability to get through the mystery, whatever unfolds in front of you. But your comment about the sleep one is important. One of the biggest things women get told when they're pregnant, apart from getting horror stories, landing on them, they then get talked to about the sleep. Oh, you'll never sleep again. I haven't had a good sleep for 10 years and all this sort of stuff. So we love to tell women the worst parts of things. But we have to realise that every journey is different, and every baby will have a different sleep path. So you can't ever prepare a woman for what her baby's going to do. But I like to remind people that you'll be surprised at how easy it is to wake up to a baby. That's quite stunning, actually, and how you can even wake up 10 seconds before they do, you know, because you can become so attuned, don't you? Have you had that experience?
Yeah. You sort of, you just hear them move their hand ever so slightly in their swaddle, and you go, oh, you're hungry.
You're onto it because you're
Yeah.
subconscious, or we've got the amygdala in our brains, which are big, and they've been primed to be hypervigilant around our babies. And so the biggest challenge is getting back to sleep, and that's why we provide a track for people to do that, to train their minds to be able to get back to sleep, or to at least access a deep state of relaxation. Which is wonderful. What would you say to a pregnant woman, Velouria? What piece of wisdom would you share with her about the process of becoming a mother and giving birth? And
I think just to trust your body, and then just to listen to what your body has to say, and that and another big one is it's okay if things don't go the way that you want them to go. You know, if you know, the biggest, like, you know, in that if you know, things, you know, if you end up with a tear, and or if you end up, you know, having an emergency Caesar, or if your baby ends up with a, like, where they breathe in their poo or something, and they have to go to the special care nursery or the NICU or something like that, that you know, that it's okay, and that I think that, you know, that it's not your fault. And I think that's the biggest one, is that I think I really blamed myself for so long, that it was my fault that I had a tear. I didn't do my massages properly. And that because of that, you know, I missed out on a couple of hours with him, and then, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And he must have missed me so much, and he probably didn't really care. But I think the biggest one is that it's okay, and it's not your fault, and that, you know, and that to just, and the other one is, just to listen to your body through labor, and, you know, and to find your special position, and that it's okay to say no if you think that things are going okay and you don't need that check, or, you know, you don't want to leave your bath, or, you know, all that kind of stuff, and that, you know, you can say no to that, and that's okay.
I'm thank you for bringing up that piece around you're not to blame. You know, I think we're sort of socialized into thinking that we're in control.
Yes.
And so that when things don't go the way we plan, the first person we blame is ourselves. But actually, what you're walking into is the mystery. There's so many different forces. There's so many different influences at play, and these are things that are beyond our control. And that's the thing I think that scares women a lot, is the idea that they won't be in control. Now, the key to dealing with that is to anchoring yourself to things that you can control, which is your ability to breathe calmly and relax. For the most part, not always we can do that, but for the most part we can do that. To harness our mind and choose love over fear. That's a very important component too. But at the end of the day, things are going to happen above and beyond our capacity to control. The real key for that is the understanding that you can deal with that. And by the way, that's what parenting is in a nutshell, isn't it? You are not in control of those children. You can influence them. You can role model, you can do all of those things that you have agency around, but you cannot control who they are, whether they sleep, whether they wake up, you know, whether they have a meltdown in the middle of a shopping center. All of that letting go process of control is helping us to be more comfortable in the mystery. And here's the thing, that's life. Life is one big mystery. So the quicker and the more we let go and learn to roll with things, the more we're going to be able to make that beautiful big adjustment into parenting and to live our lives in a much more healthy, mentally healthy way, and not blame ourselves for everything.
Yes.
Yeah. You've raised some really beautiful points, Velouria. Thank you so much. You know, going from a place where you were a NICU nurse and dealing with a lot of babies and seeing some of the worst case scenarios, to retraining your mind, harnessing your mind, and, doing the prep that you did, which sounds like it really supported you, and using all of those tools to find comfort that you went through. I really appreciated you talking about that, and trusting your body. And, you ended up with a tear, but at the time you didn't feel it. It did require a little bit of separation, which must have been difficult. But at the end of the day, you've got to get through what you've got to get through. Is there any last thing you'd like to say to our audience?
No, I think I've said everything.
Yeah.
Or maybe the one thing is, if there's any husbands listening, is don't be afraid to sort of do as much as you can do, that. And then I think all the little things that you can do equal one massive thing. So, and for like just grabbing the bottle of water and coaching her to go to the toilet, it's all those little things that while in the moment might seem small, but they really make a huge difference. I wouldn't have been able to do it without my husband. So
that's great.
all those little things.
Yeah, getting partners or birth support people on board is just gold, isn't it? Yeah. Well done to your beautiful man.
Yes.
I bet he got a few brownie points that day.
Yes, definitely.
Are they still lasting, or has he run out of brownie points now?
No, he's still lasting. He's all right.
Well done. Oh, look, I'm so grateful when people step up and inspire others to see birth differently. And your story was precious for that. So thank you so much for giving us your time, and big love to little Luke. Thanks for letting Mum talk. He did pretty well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He's currently sitting in his toy box. So that's
good on him.
He poured all the toys out. Now he's sitting in it. So
terrific. Thanks. And thanks for joining us. And we'd love to see you next week for another birth story. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.